Amara had never been to a hotel like this before. It was a stark contrast to the small rundown inn where she had worked in the village. The luxury of the hotel, the towering structure with its pristine glass windows, gleaming floors and polished marble walls, made her feel like an outsider. She was used to cleaning cramped, dimly lit rooms. But now she was cleaning the suite of a billionaire, a place where everything seemed to shimmer with wealth. On her third day working there, something felt different. Maybe it was the exhaustion from her grueling shift, or the suffocating pressure of the hotel's upper echelon. Her body ached and her legs were heavy from hours of cleaning. As she entered the suite, her eyes caught the gleam of the soft, fluffy bed in the middle of the room, the warmth from the perfectly placed lights casting a golden hue on the silk sheets. Before she could stop herself, Amara's body sagged with relief, and she sat on the edge of the bed. One moment of comfort wouldn't hurt. Just a few minutes. She closed her eyes for a moment, and before she knew it, sleep overcame her. Hours later, the sound of a knock startled her awake and her heart skipped a beat. She bolted upright, realizing where she was. She had fallen asleep in a billionaire's bed. Her breath caught in her throat as the door handle turned, and the door creaked open. "Housekeeping," a voice called out. Before Amara could react, the door swung open and a man stepped into the room. He was tall, with sharp features and an air of authority that immediately put her on edge. She froze as her eyes met his. It was Tobi Lawson, the billionaire whose suite she had been cleaning. Tobi's sharp gaze lingered on her for a moment, his eyes scanning the room and then focusing on her. "What are you doing here?" His voice was calm, but there was an edge to it. He didn't sound angry, but something about the way he looked at her made Amara's stomach twist in knots. Amara scrambled to get up, her heart pounding in her chest. I didn't mean to. I was tired, and..." Tobi interrupted her, his voice soft but commanding. "You were tired. I see." He paused and his eyes softened just a fraction. "It's all right. But I'm curious, why didn't you run when I walked in?" Amara blinked, still shocked by the turn of events. I wasn't sure what to do." Tobi didn't seem to be angry, but there was something calculating in his eyes. He stepped closer, his gaze never leaving hers. "Most people would have panicked," he said, a hint of amusement in his voice. "I respect your calm." She nodded, feeling more nervous now than ever. "I'll tell you what," he said, a smile playing on his lips. "Why don't you clean the rest of the rooms tomorrow? As a reward for your bravery?" Amara stood still, confused. "Reward?" Tobi's smile widened slightly, but his gaze hardened just a bit. "You've earned it. Trust me. I'm offering you a job here full-time. I think you'll find you belong in this world. A world where nothing is impossible." Amara froze. His words echoed in her mind. This wasn't just about cleaning rooms anymore. Tobi Lawson, one of the wealthiest men she'd ever heard of, was offering her something she couldn't quite grasp. But then, as her thoughts raced, she noticed something, a shadow passing by the window, a figure in the distance who seemed to be watching them. Amara's instincts kicked in. She felt the hairs on the back of her neck stand up. She couldn't shake the feeling that something about this offer and this man was more complicated than it appeared. Amara couldn't shake the feeling that something was wrong. It wasn't just the surreal nature of her new job offer. It was the small, nagging doubts that had begun to creep into her mind. The way Tobi had looked at her the night before, his gaze sharp and calculating despite his calm words, kept replaying in her mind. And there was something about the woman, Victoria, that made Amara's gut twist. Victoria's cold, appraising eyes felt like a silent warning. She had been working in Tobi's world for less than a day, yet already she could feel the weight of its complexities. The luxury, the power, and the hidden secrets that seemed to lurk beneath the surface. Was Tobi genuinely offering her a chance to change her life? Or was this just another game, one that she wasn't equipped to play? Amara walked through the halls of the hotel, carrying her cleaning cart, but her mind was elsewhere. The grand, polished floors beneath her feet felt different now, as if they had become part of a world she didn't belong in. She had always prided herself on her ability to blend in, to disappear into the background. But now, with the weight of Tobi's attention on her, she felt exposed. She tried to shake the feeling off as she entered one of the hotel suites to begin her shift. But as she set to work, she couldn't stop thinking about the strange encounter. The coldness of Victoria's gaze still haunted her. Why had Tobi introduced her to the woman in such an offhand way? Why had he seemed so intent on showing her off to someone so seemingly disinterested in her? Later that evening, as Amara finished her shift and prepared to head home, her phone buzzed with a new message. It was from Tobi. "I hope you're free tomorrow. We need to talk about your new position. Can I meet you at the hotel at 3 p.m.? Her heart skipped a beat. What did he want to talk about now? Amara had barely been able to wrap her head around the offer he had given her, and now, another meeting? Was there more to this than she realized? She typed a quick reply. I'll be there at 3. The following day, Amara couldn't shake the feeling of anxiety that was building in her chest. She was caught between her curiosity and her gut instincts, both pulling her in different directions. The hotel lobby, usually a place of bustling activity, felt unusually empty. The air felt thick with unspoken tension as she walked toward the elevators. She spotted Tobi immediately. He was waiting for her by the elevator, his ever-present calm demeanor masking the tension she could feel in the air. But today there was something else in his expression, something she couldn't quite place. It was almost as if he was waiting for something or someone. Tobi greeted her with a warm smile, but his eyes seemed distant. Amara, I'm glad you could make it. Come, let's talk. They stepped into the elevator, and Amara noticed Tobi was a bit more reserved than usual. He wasn't as chatty, and his usual charm seemed to be somewhat guarded. Amara couldn't help but wonder what was going through his mind. The tension between them felt different today, sharper, more palpable. As they exited the elevator and entered a private meeting room, Amara noticed something immediately. Another woman was there, seated at the conference table, flipping through a stack of papers. Her presence was imposing, and she had the kind of confidence that came with both power and wealth. Amara, Tobi began, his voice calm but with an undercurrent of something she couldn't quite read. This is Victoria, one of my business partners. She's here to help with logistics for your new role. The woman's eyes lifted slowly, scanning Amara from head to toe. She didn't offer a smile nor a greeting. Her gaze was cold, almost as if she was appraising Amara as one would a commodity, not a person. Nice to meet you, Victoria said, her voice cool but polite. Nice to meet you too, Amara replied, her voice steady despite the unease bubbling up inside her. Tobi seemed to sense the tension between the two women, and his smile faded slightly. Amara's been doing great work, Victoria, he said, his tone more serious now. I want her to start taking on more responsibility. This isn't just about assisting me anymore. She's going to play a bigger role in this company. Victoria didn't respond immediately. She continued flipping through her papers, her lips pressed in a tight line. When she finally spoke, her voice was laced with skepticism. Are you sure she's up to the task, Tobi? She asked, her eyes flicking back up to Amara. It's not just about keeping schedules and answering emails. This job requires more than just good intentions. Tobi's eyes hardened, and Amara noticed the shift in his demeanor. He was clearly irritated. I trust her, he said firmly. And I've already seen more from her than I expected. Victoria raised an eyebrow but said nothing further. The silence in the room was thick, as if a silent battle was taking place between the two of them. Amara's head was spinning, her mind trying to make sense of the dynamics at play. She had felt tension before, but this was different. The unease in the air was palpable, and it wasn't just about her new role. Tobi turned back to her, his expression softening just slightly. You're more capable than you think, Amara. I wouldn't be putting you in this position if I didn't believe in you. But Amara couldn't shake the feeling that something was off. The way Victoria had looked at her, the way Tobi had seemed so protective of her, it all felt like pieces of a larger puzzle that she wasn't sure she was ready to solve. Later, after the meeting, Amara walked through the hotel, her thoughts clouded. As she stepped out into the street, she saw it again, the black sedan parked a few cars down. The same one that had followed her yesterday. Her pulse quickened and she glanced around nervously, but no one seemed to be paying attention to her. She walked quickly toward her apartment, but the feeling of being watched was growing stronger with each step. She had tried to ignore it before, but now she couldn't shake the suspicion that someone was following her. She turned a corner and the sedan started up again, trailing behind her at a distance. Amara's breath hitched in her chest. Why was she being followed? Was it Tobi's business, or was it something more personal? And if it was, who could be watching her? She had only just stepped into this world and already she felt like she was being drawn into something far bigger than she understood. The evening. When Amara arrived back at her apartment, she slammed the door behind her, her heart racing. The fear gnawed at her, and she couldn't quiet the anxiety that was eating at her. What did Tobi really want from her? What was the real reason for this job offer? Her phone buzzed again, breaking her thoughts. This time it was a message from Tobi. I hope you're okay. Let's meet tomorrow. We need to discuss the next steps for your role. But Amara wasn't sure if she was ready for another conversation with him. Tobi's kindness had been genuine, but now she was starting to wonder what his intentions really were. What was behind his sudden interest in her? And more importantly, why was someone watching her? Amara had barely slept the night after her tense meeting with Tobi and Victoria. The feeling of being watched still gnawed at her. It wasn't just paranoia, she was sure someone was keeping an eye on her. The car that followed her, the cold tension in the room, and Victoria's untrusting gaze all pointed to something much larger than just a new job offer. There were secrets lurking in the shadows, and Amara couldn't help but feel that she was being pulled into a dangerous game. She wasn't sure if it was Tobi's intentions or the strange people around him, but something about the whole situation felt off. But there was no turning back now. When the morning sun pierced through the curtains of her apartment, Amara knew she couldn't live in fear anymore. She had made a choice, to trust Tobi and to see where this new life would take her. It was a leap into the unknown, but sometimes, the unknown was where the most incredible opportunities lay. She arrived at the office earlier than usual. Tobi had been waiting for her with a cup of coffee in hand, his usual calm demeanor masking the intensity that lingered between them. Amara could feel the electricity in the air, and her heart raced as she walked in. "Good morning," Tobi said, his voice a touch deeper than usual. He was standing by his desk, his suit perfectly tailored to his frame. There was something magnetic about him, something that made her heart flutter and her thoughts scatter every time he looked at her. "Good morning, Tobi," Amara replied, trying to sound casual but unable to shake the nervous excitement in her chest. She had spent hours the previous night wondering if it was all too good to be true, but the sight of him brought everything crashing back into focus. There was a moment of silence, their eyes meeting, and Amara could feel the weight of their connection. Her breath caught in her throat as Tobi stepped closer, his gaze never leaving hers. "I need you to go over some reports for me today," Tobi said, breaking the tension in the room. But there was something about the way he spoke, the way his eyes lingered on her, that told her this was no ordinary meeting. There was more on his mind, and Amara couldn't ignore the pull between them. As the day wore on, Amara felt the weight of Tobi's attention on her. She focused on the task at hand, but every time she looked up, she found him watching her. His presence was like a force that seemed to envelop the room. She tried to concentrate, but it was becoming harder with each passing minute. The afternoon stretched on, and soon enough, it was time for their scheduled dinner. Tobi had invited her to join him at his private dining room in the mansion, and she couldn't help but feel a mix of excitement and apprehension. She had been working with him for a while now, but tonight it felt like something had shifted. As Amara arrived at the mansion, she noticed the lights were dimmed, casting a soft glow over the grand staircase and entryway. The ambience was intimate, the air thick with anticipation. Tobi greeted her at the door, his smile warm, but there was an intensity in his eyes that sent a shiver down her spine. "You look beautiful tonight," Tobi said, his voice low, his gaze raking over her in a way that made her heart race. Amara blushed but managed to smile. "Thank you. You look amazing too." The evening passed with laughter and easy conversation, the two of them growing more comfortable with each other. But as the night wore on, there was a palpable shift. The subtle touches, his hand brushing hers as he passed her a glass of wine, the way his fingers lingered a moment longer than necessary, built an undeniable tension. They finished their meal, and the conversation slowed as Tobi rose from his seat. He gestured for her to follow him. "I'd like to show you something," he said, leading her up a grand staircase. Amara's heart raced as they walked down a long hallway, stopping at a door at the end. Tobi opened it, revealing a private balcony overlooking the city. The view was breathtaking. The lights of the city stretched out before them, and Amara couldn't help but take in the beauty of the scene. "Tobi, this is incredible," she whispered, stepping closer to the railing, her breath catching in her throat. He stood behind her, close enough that she could feel his presence, but not yet touching her. He watched her intently, and for a moment, neither of them spoke. The silence between them was charged, full of unspoken words and emotions. Finally, Tobi spoke, his voice soft, almost hesitant. "Amara, I can't deny the way I feel about you. From the moment I met you, something inside me shifted. I've never been the kind of man to let someone in, but with you, it's different. I don't want to fight this feeling anymore." Amara's heart raced as she turned to face him. She had known for a while now that the chemistry between them was undeniable, but hearing him say it out loud made everything feel real. "Tobi, Before she could finish her sentence, Tobi reached for her, his lips crashing against hers in a kiss that was full of hunger and longing. His arms wrapped around her, pulling her closer, and Amara melted into him, her body responding to the intimacy they shared. The kiss deepened, and Amara felt a surge of desire run through her. She had never experienced anything like this before. She had always kept her emotions in check, but with Tobi, everything felt so raw, so real. They broke apart, breathless, and Tobi rested his forehead against hers. "Amara," he whispered, his voice thick with desire. "I need you. I've never wanted anyone the way I want you right now." Amara's heart was racing, her thoughts scattered, but she didn't hesitate. She reached up to pull him back toward her, kissing him again, this time with even more urgency. The night stretched on, filled with passion and raw emotion. For the first time in her life, Amara let herself surrender to the moment, to the connection she shared with Tobi. It wasn't just about desire. It was about something deeper, something that tied them together in a way that was impossible to ignore. They spent the night together, their bodies intertwined, the world outside fading away. And as the morning light began to filter through the curtains, Amara found herself lying next to Tobi, her heart still racing, her mind reeling. The morning after their night together, Amara woke with a heavy heart, the reality of the situation slowly settling in. Tobi's kiss still lingered on her lips, but something else gnawed at her, a feeling she couldn't shake. It wasn't just the rush of passion they had shared. It was the aftermath, the silence that followed, and the way everything between them had shifted in the span of a few hours. Amara sat up in the plush bed, the soft sheets slipping from her skin as she glanced around the luxurious room. The opulence of it all felt so foreign. She had never been this close to such wealth, and for a moment she felt out of place, like a small piece of something much larger that she didn't fully understand. Her thoughts raced, as did her heart. Tobi had promised her nothing but honesty, but could she trust him? Could she trust herself? Was this all too good to be true? What did Tobi truly want from her? The lingering doubts crept in, but before she could contemplate them further, she heard the soft knock on the door. Her breath caught in her throat, and her heart skipped a beat. She knew it was Tobi. After everything that had happened, she wasn't sure how to face him. She stood up, her feet finding the soft carpet beneath her, and walked toward the door. She opened it slowly, only to find Tobi standing on the other side, a soft smile on his lips, but his eyes darkened with an emotion she couldn't quite place. "Good morning," Tobi said, his voice low and steady. "I hope you slept well." Amara nodded, her mind still clouded with uncertainty. "I did, thank you," she replied, trying to steady her breathing. She was still trying to come to terms with the night before, with everything that had transpired between them. But now, seeing Tobi in the light of day, his presence felt even more intense. "I'm glad," Tobi said, his eyes lingering on her. "I wanted to talk to you about something." Amara's heart skipped a beat. She knew this conversation was coming. The last thing she had expected was a whirlwind romance, but that's exactly what had happened. She had never been one to rush into anything, but with Tobi, everything felt too complicated. And she didn't know if she could handle what was being asked of her. "I'm listening," she said quietly, trying to keep her voice steady. Tobi stepped into the room, his gaze never leaving hers. "I meant what I said last night, Amara," he began, his voice softer now. "What we shared, it wasn't just about physical attraction. I don't want you to think that. There's something between us, something that's different." Amara's breath hitched. She had thought about his words all night. Could she really let herself fall for him? Was it wise to let someone like Tobi get so close, someone who had everything, wealth, power, influence? Could she ever be enough for him, or was she just a distraction for a man who could have anyone he wanted? "I don't know if I can do this," Amara confessed, her voice barely above a whisper. "I don't know what this is, Tobi. I've never been in a relationship like this before. I've never been with someone like you." Tobi took a step closer, his expression softening. "I understand," he said gently. "And I'm not asking for anything you're not ready to give. I just wanted you to know that what we have, it's real. It's not just about the attraction. I care about you, Amara, more than you know." The words hit her like a wave, and for a moment, Amara didn't know how to respond. She wanted to believe him, wanted to trust in the connection they had shared. But her instincts screamed at her to tread carefully. She couldn't ignore the nagging feeling that there was more to Tobi's life than he was letting on. "I care about you too," she said softly, her voice trembling. "But I need to know the truth, Tobi. I need to know if I can trust you." Tobi's gaze darkened slightly, and there was a flicker of something in his eyes that made Amara pause. She saw a flash of vulnerability, of something deeper beneath the surface that he hadn't shown her before. But just as quickly as it appeared, it vanished. "You can trust me," he said, his voice firm but quiet. "But there are things I can't tell you yet. Things I have to protect you from." Amara's pulse quickened. "Protect me from what?" she asked, her voice rising in suspicion. Tobi stepped back, his gaze flickering toward the window. There are people, Amara. People who have been watching us. Watching you. I didn't want to bring you into this, but it's already happening. I don't want you to be caught in the middle of my world. It's dangerous. Amara froze, her heart racing as Tobi's words sank in. She had sensed something was off, but this was more than she had ever expected. Who's watching me? She asked, her voice shaking. Who's involved in all this? Tobi walked over to her, his eyes meeting hers. I can't say right now, but I'll protect you. I swear it. No one will hurt you, Amara. The words sounded genuine, but something in her gut told her that this wasn't just about Tobi and her. There was a larger, more dangerous game being played, and Amara was suddenly caught in the middle of it. That evening, as they dined together, Amara tried to keep her mind from spiraling. The weight of Tobi's words hung heavily between them, casting a shadow over the intimate dinner they had shared the night before. The food was exquisite, the atmosphere warm, but all Amara could focus on was the sense of foreboding that had settled in her chest. Tobi, ever the composed businessman, seemed almost distant tonight, his usual charm replaced with a quiet intensity. Amara felt his eyes on her, but the connection they had shared the night before seemed strained, as if something was missing. She couldn't shake the feeling that Tobi was hiding something from her, something bigger than just business deals or casual romantic advances. Tobi, she said, setting her fork down. I need you to be honest with me. I can't go into this blindly. I can't pretend I don't feel like there's something else happening here. Something more dangerous. Tobi's gaze softened, and for a moment she saw the man behind the powerful exterior. But just as quickly the mask slipped back into place. There are things I can't tell you right now, he said quietly. I don't want to drag you into this, but I can't stop what's happening. There's too much at stake. Amara stared at him, her emotions swirling. Her heart ached for him, but her mind screamed at her to protect herself. She wasn't sure if Tobi's world was worth the risk. I don't want to lose you, he said suddenly, his voice softer now. But you need to know the truth. And I'll tell you when the time is right. Amara sat back in her chair, her head spinning. She wanted to trust him, but the secrets, the uncertainty, it was too much to ignore. She needed answers, but Tobi wasn't ready to give them. That night, Amara lay in bed, staring at the ceiling. Tobi's words kept echoing in her mind. There was so much he wasn't telling her. She wanted to trust him, wanted to believe that their connection was real, but she couldn't shake the feeling that she was being drawn into something she didn't fully understand. The world Tobi inhabited, this life of power, influence, and danger, was a world she didn't belong in. She had spent her life surviving, fighting for her family, and now she was caught in the middle of a game she didn't know how to play. But there was one thing she knew for certain. Her feelings for Tobi were real. Despite the uncertainty, despite the fear that gnawed at her, she wanted him. She wasn't sure if it was love or just the heat of desire, but something deep inside told her that she couldn't walk away from this. She just hoped she wasn't making a mistake. If you've been enjoying this story so far, make sure to like and subscribe for more. Amara's mind raced as she walked back to her apartment, her steps quick and deliberate. Tobi's words echoed in her ears, there's too much at stake. She had always been cautious, careful about who she trusted, but now Tobi was asking her to trust him completely, to step into a world that was foreign and dangerous. She had always believed that her life would be simple, straightforward. But now the lines between right and wrong, trust and deception, were becoming increasingly blurred. The doubts were eating at her, clawing at the edges of her resolve. How could she reconcile the man she was beginning to care for with the shadows lurking around him? There was more to his life than he was letting on, and the fear that gnawed at her made her second-guess everything. Was he really trying to protect her, or was he pulling her into a web of lies and deceit? She reached her apartment door, the familiar sight of the worn-out building doing little to calm her nerves. She hadn't been able to sleep much since their last conversation. Each time her eyes closed, her thoughts were consumed by Tobi, by the way he'd looked at her, by the emotions he had stirred within her, and by the unsettling feeling that something was wrong. Before she could enter, her phone buzzed in her hand. It was a message from Tobi. I've been thinking about you all day. I want to see you tonight. Please come over. The words sent a jolt of heat through her body. She wanted to go to him, to lose herself in his arms, to forget the chaos and the doubt, even if just for a moment. But she couldn't ignore the sinking feeling in her chest, the gnawing suspicion that something was off. Still, she couldn't deny the pull he had on her. She needed him, needed to understand what was happening between them. So, despite the war raging inside her, she typed back, I'll be there in an hour. When Amara arrived at Tobi's mansion, the feeling of unease still lingered, but it was buried beneath the weight of her desire for him. She was nervous, but not in the way she had been before. There was something different now, something more urgent. She needed answers. The moment she stepped inside, the warmth of the house enveloped her. Tobi was waiting for her, just as he had been every time before, but tonight there was something different in the air, an electric tension, an unspoken anticipation that made her heart race. He greeted her with a gentle smile, his eyes darkened with a longing she hadn't seen before. "Amara," he whispered, stepping closer, his hand gently brushing against hers. "You look breathtaking." Her breath caught in her throat. The sincerity in his voice made her heart flutter, and for a brief moment, all her doubts seemed to vanish. She looked up into his eyes, and for the first time she saw the rawness in his gaze. There was no mask, no guarded exterior, just Tobi, the man who had made her feel more alive than she ever thought possible. "Thank you," she murmured, her voice barely above a whisper. She could feel the heat radiating from him, and it stirred something deep within her. Tobi reached out, his fingers brushing her cheek gently. "I need you to understand something, Amara," he said softly. "I want to protect you, but I'm also a man who wants you. More than I've ever wanted anything." His voice grew more intense. "I don't want you to be scared. I want you to be with me, not just physically but emotionally. I want all of you." Amara felt a shiver run through her, her body responding to the intensity of his words. He wasn't just asking for her body, he was asking for her heart, her trust. And that was something she wasn't sure she could give so easily. She stepped back slightly, her breath uneven. "Tobi, I need to know everything. I can't keep going like this, not knowing what I'm walking into. I need you to be honest with me." Her voice wavered slightly, but she pushed through. "What are you hiding from me?" Tobi paused, his face softening, but the tension in the room didn't dissipate. He took a step back, running a hand through his hair. "I told you there are things I can't tell you, Amara." "Not yet. But I promise when the time is right I'll share everything. I just need you to trust me." Amara's heart pounded in her chest as she stared at him. This was it, the breaking point. She could either walk away, keep her distance, and never fully understand what was happening between them, or she could trust him, risk everything, and let herself fall deeper into this whirlwind. "I don't know if I can trust you, Tobi," she admitted, her voice trembling. "You say you want to protect me, but I don't know what you're really hiding. And I don't know if I'm strong enough to deal with whatever that is." Tobi's eyes softened, his hand reaching out to touch her arm gently. "I never wanted to drag you into this, Amara. But I can't keep pretending that you don't mean something to me. And I can't keep you at arm's length. I need you in my life, and I need you to understand the risks I'm taking by involving you." Amara swallowed hard, the emotions surging within her. Her mind screamed for caution, for distance, but her heart wanted to believe in him. She wanted to trust him, to embrace the possibility of love, of something more than the simple life she had always known. "I don't know if I can be what you need," she whispered, her eyes brimming with unshed tears. "But I can't stay away from you, Tobi. I can't deny what I feel." Before she could say another word, Tobi pulled her into his arms, his lips capturing hers in a kiss that was both fierce and tender. It was a kiss that spoke volumes, of desire, of fear, of longing for something they both knew they couldn't completely understand. As they pulled apart, Tobi's forehead rested against hers. "I don't need you to be perfect, Amara. I just need you to be with me." Amara closed her eyes, letting the warmth of his words wash over her. For the first time, she allowed herself to relax, to let go of the fear that had gripped her heart. She didn't have all the answers, but in that moment, all she wanted was to be with him. The rest of the night unfolded in a blur of passion, intimacy, and raw emotion. They shared more than just physical connection. They shared a piece of themselves that neither had expected. Tobi's touch was gentle yet desperate, as if he was afraid of losing her, and Amara responded with the same fervor, letting herself be consumed by the moment. She could feel his heart beating against hers, his hands tracing every inch of her skin as if memorizing her body, imprinting it on his soul. The intimacy between them grew deeper, more intense, as if the walls they had both built up were finally crumbling. Amara surrendered to the feeling of being wanted, being desired, in a way she had never known before. It wasn't just physical, it was emotional, spiritual even. They were bound together in a way neither of them could explain. As the night drew to a close, Amara found herself in Tobi's arms, her head resting against his chest, her body still trembling from the intensity of their connection. She felt safe, protected, but there was still a part of her that remained wary. The world they were navigating together was complex, and she wasn't sure if she was ready to step fully into it. Tobi stroked her hair gently, his voice barely a whisper. Amara, I meant it when I said I want you in my life. But I need you to know that there's danger in my world. I won't lie to you about that. But I'll do whatever it takes to keep you safe. You have my word. She looked up at him, her heart swelling with a mix of fear and affection. She wasn't sure where this journey would take them, but for the first time she was willing to take the leap. I trust you, Tobi, she whispered, her voice full of emotion. And I want to be with you. The days that followed were a whirlwind of emotions, each one more intense than the last. After the night they had shared, Amara felt like she was walking on a tightrope, torn between the life she had known and the life Tobi was pulling her into. The warmth of his touch still lingered on her skin, the echo of his whispered promises playing in her mind. But as much as she wanted to ignore the doubts creeping into her thoughts, she couldn't. The reality of what Tobi had said, the danger that followed him, the people who were watching her, kept her awake at night. It was like a shadow she couldn't escape, no matter how tightly she tried to hold onto the comfort he offered. Amara knew she had crossed a line. She had stepped into Tobi's world and there was no turning back. But the question that kept running through her mind was whether she could survive it. Could she trust Tobi enough to walk beside him, or was she about to be caught in a storm she couldn't control? The meeting. It was a few days later when the next piece of the puzzle fell into place. Tobi had called her into his office, asking her to join him for a business meeting. Amara had no idea what the meeting was about, but Tobi had insisted she be there, to help him with some logistics. He had been distant lately, his mind often preoccupied with something she couldn't see, and Amara wondered if it was the growing tension around their relationship or something more dangerous that was pulling his focus away. She arrived at the office, trying to push away the thoughts that had been plaguing her. Tobi was already there, his back turned as he gazed out the large windows. The city stretched out before him, a world of power and wealth that seemed so distant to Amara. Amara, Tobi said without turning around, his voice calm but clipped. You're here. I'm here, she replied softly, standing by the door. Her heart was racing. There was something in the air today, something heavier, more charged. What's this meeting about? Tobi finally turned to face her, his eyes locking with hers. I need you to trust me, Amara, he said quietly, the intensity in his gaze unmistakable. You're about to learn things about my world. Things I haven't told you yet. Her stomach tightened. What are you talking about? She asked, taking a step forward. What's going on, Tobi? He sighed, walking over to her. I didn't want to drag you into this, but there's no way around it now. There are people who want to see me fall, and they're using you to get to me. You've become a target, Amara. Her pulse quickened. A target? What are you talking about? Don't you see it? Tobi's voice was low, almost desperate. The way people have been watching us, the way things feel off. The stakes are higher than I've told you. I didn't want to scare you, but I can't protect you if you don't understand what's really going on. Amara was frozen in place, her mind racing to process what he was saying. Who wants to hurt me? She asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Tobi walked over to his desk, pulling out a manila folder filled with papers. He handed it to her, his fingers brushing hers as he did. These are the people I'm dealing with. Powerful people. People who have ties to the business world but also to dangerous networks. I've kept you out of it, but I can't anymore. Amara opened the folder, scanning the pages quickly. There were names, images, and detailed notes on various business deals, things that made her head spin. But one name stood out above the rest. It was a man she didn't recognize, but the notes on him were chilling. Who is this? She asked, her voice trembling. Tobi's face darkened. His name is Victor Calderon. He's dangerous, Amara. And he's after me. He'll stop at nothing to destroy everything I've built, and if that means using you to get to me, he won't hesitate. Amara's hands shook as she read the notes on Victor. This wasn't just business, it was personal. She was caught in the middle of something far bigger than herself, something she wasn't prepared for. Tobi, she said, her voice barely audible. What does this mean for me? It means I'm going to protect you, Tobi said firmly. But it also means you need to be prepared for what's coming. There's no going back from this, Amara. You're involved now. A night of tension. Later that evening, after the meeting, Amara found herself back at Tobi's mansion, her mind still reeling from everything she had learned. She sat on the balcony, her legs curled beneath her as she stared out at the city. The lights were beautiful, but they only served as a reminder of the darkness creeping into her life. Tobi had told her that she was a target. But why her? What had she done to deserve this? The sound of the door opening behind her made her turn. Tobi stood there, his silhouette outlined by the warm light from inside the house. He walked over to her slowly, his steps purposeful. "You're thinking too much," he said softly, sitting beside her. Amara shook her head. "How am I supposed to ignore this, Tobi? How am I supposed to pretend everything is okay when I know what's happening? People want to hurt me. And you're telling me to trust you, but how can I when I don't even know the full story?" Tobi exhaled, his gaze softening. "I never wanted this for you, Amara. I never wanted to drag you into my world, but now that you're here, I can't let you go. Not without telling you the truth." Amara's heart pounded in her chest. "What truth, Tobi? What aren't you telling me?" Tobi's eyes darkened, the weight of his words settling between them. "There are things in my past that I can't escape. People I've crossed, decisions I've made. I've always thought I could handle it, but now you're involved and I don't know if I can keep you safe." The vulnerability in his voice made Amara's heart ache. For the first time, she saw him not as the powerful billionaire, but as a man carrying a burden too heavy to bear. "I'm not afraid of you, Tobi," she whispered. "I'm afraid of losing myself in all this. I don't know if I'm strong enough to face whatever's coming." Tobi reached out, his hand gently cupping her face. His thumb brushed over her cheek and for a moment, everything else seemed to disappear. He pulled her closer, his lips capturing hers in a kiss that was tender yet filled with urgency. It was as if he was trying to reassure her, trying to show her that despite the danger, he was still here. But as they pulled away, Amara could see the fear in his eyes. The fear that he couldn't protect her from what was coming. "I'll do whatever it takes to keep you safe," he promised, his voice low and full of emotion. "But I need you to stay with me. Don't walk away, Amara. Not now. The dangers close in." The days that followed were a blur of tension, uncertainty, and growing fear. Amara couldn't shake the feeling that she was being watched. She saw the same black sedan following her, parked outside the mansion, and she felt eyes on her wherever she went. The world Tobi had introduced her to was dangerous, and she was caught in the middle of it. Tobi had promised to protect her, but as the days wore on, Amara couldn't help but feel like she was being pulled into something she didn't fully understand. There were moments when she saw flashes of the man behind the power, vulnerable, conflicted, and afraid. But there was also the business mogul who was ruthless, who would do anything to protect his empire. And in the end, Amara didn't know which side of him she should trust. That night, as Amara lay in bed, her phone buzzed. It was a message from Tobi. "Meet me in the office. We need to talk." Her heart raced. The message felt urgent, like something was about to happen. And she had no idea what to expect. Amara's mind was a whirlwind of thoughts as she made her way to Tobi's office. His message had been cryptic, but the urgency in his words was unmistakable. She had never seen him this serious, and the weight of the situation pressed heavily on her chest. She couldn't ignore the growing fear inside her. Every time she stepped outside, she felt the eyes of unseen watchers on her. Tobi's warnings had come to life. The people he'd spoken of, the dangerous ties he had, they weren't just stories. They were real. And Amara was in the middle of it all. As she entered the elevator and ascended to Tobi's floor, her heart raced. She had no idea what was coming next, but something inside her told her that tonight would change everything. When she stepped off the elevator, Tobi was already waiting for her in the conference room. He stood by the large glass windows, his back turned to her, staring out over the city. The lights below twinkled, but there was an unsettling stillness in the room. The air felt heavy, charged with something unspoken. "You came," Tobi's voice was low, almost distant as he turned to face her. His eyes locked with hers, but there was a sadness in them now, something that had never been there before. "I came," Amara replied, her voice steady, though she could feel her pulse hammering in her neck. She took a step toward him, her eyes searching his face for answers. "Tobi, what's going on? What's so urgent?" Tobi's expression softened as he looked at her, but there was no denying the tension in the air. He gestured for her to sit down, his hand brushing against hers as she moved to the chair. The simple touch sent a shiver down her spine, but the distance in his eyes made her heart ache. "Amara," Tobi began, his voice hoarse as if it had been weighed down with too many secrets. "I never wanted to put you in the middle of all this. But now it's too late. I can't keep you in the dark anymore." Amara's breath caught in her throat. "What do you mean? Tobi, what's happening?" Tobi took a deep breath, his eyes darkening as he ran a hand through his hair. "There's a group of people, powerful people, who have been watching us, manipulating the situation from behind the scenes. They're using you to get to me, Amara. They know how important you are to me, and they'll stop at nothing to use that to their advantage." Amara felt the blood drain from her face. Her mind raced as she tried to make sense of what he was saying. You're saying that someone is using me against you? Her voice trembled with the weight of his words. But why? Why me? I don't understand. Tobi walked closer to her, his eyes filled with regret. It's not just about you, Amara. It's about my empire. I've made enemies and they're willing to do anything to bring me down. They've already attacked my business, tried to take control in ways I never saw coming. But when you came into my life, they saw an opportunity. They think that if they hurt you, they can break me. And I'll do whatever it takes to stop that from happening. Amara stood up suddenly, her heart pounding. The fear that had been building inside her now erupted into full force. Who are these people, Tobi? Who wants to hurt me? And why didn't you tell me sooner? Tobi reached for her, his hand gently touching her arm. I didn't want to bring you into this. I wanted to protect you from it. But you're too deep in this now, Amara. You're tied to me in ways I can't undo. And I'm not going to let anyone hurt you. Amara's heart swelled with emotion, but there was a sense of dread that she couldn't shake. I don't want to be a pawn in this, Tobi. I'm not some prize to be won or lost in your war. Tobi's eyes softened, his voice filled with sincerity. You're not a pawn. You never were. You've become someone I can't lose, Amara. More than that, I need you with me. Not just because of this mess, but because of what we've built together. What we could have together. I can't imagine my life without you. Amara's chest tightened. She had been trying so hard to push away the feelings that were growing inside her. She had told herself that she couldn't afford to fall for him, that she couldn't let her emotions get in the way of her safety. But now, hearing the vulnerability in his voice, she couldn't deny the truth any longer. I don't want to lose you either, she whispered. But I can't be caught in the middle of this war. I'm not strong enough for that. Tobi reached for her, his hand cupping her face gently. I'll make sure you're safe. I swear it. I won't let anyone hurt you. I won't let them win. There was a quiet moment between them as Amara searched his eyes, trying to find the truth in his words. She saw the man she had fallen for, the man who had shown her kindness, warmth, and a love that was both intense and frightening. But even as she gazed at him, the shadows in the room seemed to grow darker, as if something was about to happen that neither of them could control. The night unfolds. Later that night, as the city slept, Amara couldn't shake the feeling that things were about to spiral out of control. Tobi had been acting differently, more distant than usual. He had promised to protect her, but she couldn't ignore the growing sense of danger that clung to him. She sat in his private study, her fingers nervously tracing the rim of her wine glass as she waited for him. The mansion was silent, the only sound the occasional rustling of leaves outside the window. It was as if the whole world was holding its breath, waiting for something to happen. Tobi entered the room, his expression unreadable. He walked over to her, his footsteps slow and deliberate. He looked at her for a moment, and for a fleeting second, Amara saw a flicker of uncertainty in his eyes. Amara, he said softly, kneeling in front of her, his hands resting on her knees. There's something I need to tell you. Something I should have told you from the beginning. Her heart skipped a beat. The air between them felt thick, like something was about to break. What is it? She asked, her voice trembling. What are you hiding, Tobi? He took a deep breath, his gaze never leaving hers. It's about Victor Calderon. He's not just a business rival. He's someone I used to work with. And the reason he's after me isn't just because of my empire. It's personal. He has a vendetta against me and he's willing to use anyone to get to me. Including you. Amara's breath hitched. You're telling me that this man, this dangerous man, wants me because of you? Tobi nodded, his jaw clenched. Yes, and I'm sorry. I never wanted this for you. But now that he knows about us, he'll stop at nothing to destroy everything I've worked for. And that means you too, Amara. A chill ran down Amara's spine. The weight of his words hit her like a hammer, and for the first time since she had entered this world, she realized how much danger she was in. But as she looked at Tobi, she saw something else in his eyes. A quiet desperation. He was more than just a man protecting his empire. He was a man who was terrified of losing her. She placed her hand gently on his, her voice barely a whisper. Tobi, I'm not going anywhere. I don't care what happens. But I need to know that you're with me. That we're in this together. Tobi's eyes softened, his lips curving into a faint, sad smile. We're in this together, Amara. Always. The unexpected arrival. As the night wore on, the atmosphere in the mansion shifted. The tension in the air seemed to grow, as if something was about to happen. Amara tried to push the fear aside. But the feeling of being watched, of being hunted, made her feel more vulnerable than ever. And then without warning, the front door slammed open and a voice echoed through the halls. Tobi. Amara. Amara's heart stopped as she recognized the voice. It was Victoria. The sound of the door slamming open was like a thunderclap in the quiet mansion. Amara froze, her breath caught in her throat as the woman's voice echoed through the hallway. Tobi. Amara. Victoria's voice was sharp, filled with urgency and command. The tension in the room thickened as Amara's heart pounded in her chest. She wasn't sure what had happened, but the fear in Tobi's eyes told her that things had just taken a dangerous turn. Tobi stood up quickly, his face pale and drawn. Amara, stay here, he said, his voice low but firm. There was a hint of panic in his eyes, something Amara had never seen before. The man who had always been in control, who exuded power and confidence, was now visibly shaken. Before Amara could react, Tobi stepped toward the door, but she grabbed his arm, pulling him back. Tobi, what's going on? Who's coming here? He looked at her with a mixture of regret and desperation. You need to stay safe. Please, Amara. Don't leave this room. The rawness of his plea tugged at her heart. She had never seen him like this. In that moment, Amara understood just how deep his fear ran, not for his empire, not for his wealth, but for her. She had become the target, not just of Victor Calderon, but of the dangerous forces that surrounded Tobi's world. Amara could hear footsteps approaching, quick and heavy. The air seemed to thicken as the distant sound of voices, Victoria's harsh tones and another, deeper voice, echoed through the hall. Tobi grabbed her hands, his grip tight. I'll make sure nothing happens to you. But you need to trust me. Her heart raced, every instinct screaming for her to run, to escape. But the connection they shared, the feelings that had grown between them, held her in place. Tobi's promise rang in her ears. I'll protect you. Don't go, she whispered, her voice trembling. I'm scared, Tobi. I don't know what's happening and I don't know if I can survive this. Tobi's gaze softened for a moment, his expression conflicted. He wanted to say something, reassure her, promise that everything would be all right, but the sound of footsteps growing closer silenced him. I love you, Amara, he whispered, his voice raw and sincere. I never wanted this life for you. But if you're with me now, we're in this together. We'll face whatever comes. And I won't let them take you from me. The confrontation. The door burst open and in walked Victoria, flanked by two large men Amara didn't recognize. The tension in the room reached a boiling point as the door slammed shut behind them. Victoria's eyes immediately locked onto Amara, her gaze sharp and filled with judgment. Are you really going to let this continue, Tobi? Victoria's voice was icy, her tone filled with disdain as she looked between the two of them. You've brought this woman into the mess you've created. Do you really think it's safe for her to be here? Do you think you can keep her protected when he is involved? Tobi stepped forward, his jaw clenched in frustration. This has nothing to do with you, Victoria. Amara's not your concern. Amara stood frozen in place, the weight of the situation pressing heavily on her chest. She had always been careful, always cautious. But now the truth was in front of her. She was caught in a web, tangled in a dangerous game that she couldn't escape from. You're wrong, Tobi, Victoria said, her eyes cold. You've already dragged her into it. You think she's safe here, but she's just a pawn in your power play. Amara could feel the tension rising between the three of them. Victoria's words cut through her like a blade, but Tobi's gaze never wavered from her. He was standing in front of her, his body a shield, but Amara knew it was more than that. He wasn't just trying to protect her. He was protecting something inside of himself, something that was far more fragile than the empire he had built. What do you want from me, Victoria? Tobi asked, his voice low and dangerous. I've told you before, this is my decision. Not yours. Victoria's lips curled into a cold smile. I want you to understand, Tobi. You think you can protect her, but you're not invincible. He won't stop. And now she's in danger because of you. Amara's heart skipped a beat. The realization hit her like a freight train. Victor Calderon wasn't just after Tobi. He was after them both. She was as much a target as he was, and the danger wasn't something she could just walk away from. The fear that had been gnawing at her now had a name, a face, and a very real threat. You don't have to do this, Tobi said, his voice calm but laced with steel. I'm not backing down. And if you want to threaten her, you'll have to go through me first. The room was silent for a moment, the tension so thick it felt suffocating. Victoria didn't move, but the men standing behind her shifted, sensing the conflict. Amara could feel her heart pounding, each beat sending waves of adrenaline through her. She didn't know what was going to happen, but she knew she was caught in the middle of a war between people far more dangerous than she had ever imagined. The twist. Suddenly, the sound of a phone ringing broke the silence. It was Tobi's phone. He glanced at it, his expression darkening as he saw the name on the screen. "It's him," Tobi muttered under his breath. "Victor." Amara's stomach clenched. This was it. The moment she had feared had arrived. Tobi picked up the phone, his hand steady despite the tension in the room. "What do you want?" he asked, his voice cold, but there was an undercurrent of frustration in his tone. On the other end of the line, the voice of Victor Calderon was unmistakable, dark, smooth, and filled with malice. "Tobi," he said, his voice dripping with mockery, "I see you finally brought her into your little game. How sweet. You must think you're untouchable. But you're not, Tobi. You're not." Amara could hear the venom in Victor's voice, the way he relished the power he held over Tobi. And in that moment she knew that this wasn't just about business, it was personal. Victor wanted to destroy everything Tobi had built, and Amara was the means to do it. "I'm not afraid of you, Victor," Tobi said firmly, his gaze never leaving Amara. "You're not going to win. This is over." But Amara could see it in Tobi's eyes. He wasn't just fighting for himself. He was fighting for her, for the life they had started to build together. The battle wasn't just for power or wealth anymore. It was for something much more precious. Something worth risking everything for. "Don't make this mistake, Tobi," Victor's voice warned, the tension rising. "I'm coming for you. And I'll make sure she's right there with you when it all falls apart." The line went dead. Tobi lowered the phone, his face grim. He turned to Amara, his eyes dark with determination. "This is it. He won't stop until I've lost everything. But I won't let him take you from me. I won't let him win." Amara's heart raced, her mind spinning with the implications of what Tobi had just said. Victor Calderon wasn't just after Tobi's empire, he was after them both. And the only way out was to fight, to confront the storm that was coming head-on. The final choice. Tobi stepped toward her, his eyes softening. "Amara, I know this isn't the life you imagined. But I need you with me. I need you to fight by my side. Together we can stop this." Amara looked at him, her heart torn between fear and love. The danger was real and so were the consequences. But she had already made her choice. She had stepped into this world and she wasn't about to run away now. She wasn't going to let fear control her. "I'm with you, Tobi," she said softly, her voice steady. "No matter what happens, I'm with you." And in that moment, with the weight of everything pressing down on them, Amara and Tobi knew that this was their battle to fight together. The following days were a blur of preparation and tension. Amara could feel the air around her thickening, every minute carrying the weight of the storm that was coming. Tobi was on edge, constantly working the phones, organizing meetings, and preparing for what he knew would be the final showdown. Victor Calderon wasn't just a business rival anymore, he was a personal threat, and Tobi wasn't about to let him destroy everything he had built, including the woman he loved. Amara had seen a side of Tobi that she never expected. He wasn't just the confident businessman she had initially met. He was a man willing to sacrifice everything to protect what mattered most to him. And she realized in that moment that what mattered most to him wasn't just his empire. It was her. It was their future. And she couldn't stand by and watch him fight alone. The night before the final battle, Amara stood in the middle of Tobi's office, her eyes tracing the lines of the city skyline beyond the glass windows. The lights of the city glittered in the distance, but to Amara, it felt like the calm before the storm. The silence was deafening, filled with unspoken fears and doubts. She turned to see Tobi standing by the desk, his back to her, as he reviewed the final details of the plan. His jaw was clenched and she could see the weariness in his posture. The weight of everything was pressing down on him, but he wasn't going to back down. Tobi felt her presence behind him and turned around, his eyes softening as they met hers. "Amara," he said quietly, walking toward her. "Are you sure you want to do this? This won't be easy and the stakes are higher than ever." Amara's heart raced. She knew this was dangerous, but she also knew there was no turning back. "I'm sure," she said firmly, her voice steady. "We're in this together, Tobi. You've brought me into your world and now I'm not leaving. Whatever happens tomorrow, I'm standing by you." Tobi's gaze softened, and for a brief moment, Amara saw the man beneath the hardened exterior. The man who was afraid of losing everything. He reached for her, his hand brushing against her cheek gently, his thumb stroking the delicate skin there. "I don't deserve you," he whispered, his voice thick with emotion. "You deserve everything, Tobi," Amara replied softly, her voice filled with conviction. "And I'm not going anywhere. We fight together no matter what." Tobi looked into her eyes, his heart swelling with a love he had never expected to feel. He leaned in, kissing her softly, a kiss that spoke of everything they had shared and everything they were about to face. It wasn't just passion, it was an unspoken promise. A promise to stand by each other no matter what came their way. The kiss broke and Tobi pulled back, his eyes searching hers. "I love you, Amara," he said, his voice thick with emotion. "More than I can put into words. And I will fight for you. Always." "I love you too, Tobi," Amara whispered, her voice filled with raw honesty. "Let's finish this. The battle begins." The next day, the world seemed to hold its breath as the final confrontation unfolded. Tobi had gathered everything he needed. His lawyers, his most trusted allies, and Amara by his side. Victor Calderon had made his move, and now it was time to put an end to the game he had been playing for so long. Amara sat in Tobi's office, her nerves on edge as the tension in the air grew palpable. She had no idea what the next few hours would bring, but she knew that they were on the edge of a precipice. The stakes were higher than ever, and Victor wasn't going to back down without a fight. Tobi walked into the room, his expression hard and focused. He had prepared for this moment, but even he couldn't shake the uncertainty that lingered in the air. He looked at Amara, his eyes softening for just a moment before the mask of the businessman returned. "Are you ready?" he asked, his voice low but steady. Amara nodded, her heart pounding in her chest. "Ready as I'll ever be," she said, her voice unwavering. "Let's end this." The showdown. The meeting was set in a high-rise building downtown, a neutral location where both Tobi and Victor could come face to face. Tobi walked into the conference room with Amara by his side, the weight of the situation hanging over them like a storm cloud. They had come prepared, and Tobi had one final card to play. This was the end of the line for Victor Calderon, and Tobi wasn't going to let him destroy everything he had worked for. Victor was already seated at the table when they arrived, a smug smile playing on his lips. The man was calm, too calm, as if he was confident that victory was within his reach. His eyes flickered to Amara, and she could see the coldness in them. He wasn't just after Tobi, he was after her too. Well, Tobi," Victor said, his voice dripping with amusement. "I see you've brought your little girlfriend along. How sweet." Tobi's jaw tightened, but he kept his composure. "This is between you and me, Victor. Amara has nothing to do with this." Victor leaned back in his chair, his eyes narrowing. "Oh, but she does. You've made her a part of your game, Tobi. And now she's the key to everything." Amara stood tall, her heart pounding but her voice steady. "You won't win, Victor. You can try to use me, but I won't be your pawn." Victor's eyes darkened and he leaned forward, his smile faltering. "You think you have control of this, Amara? You're just a piece of a much larger puzzle." Tobi stepped forward, his presence commanding. "No, Victor. You don't get to dictate this anymore. We're ending it today. The final betrayal." As the meeting dragged on, Tobi and Victor exchanged heated words, each one trying to outmaneuver the other. But Amara's mind was focused on something else. She could feel the shift in the room, the sense that something was about to happen. And then, without warning, the door to the conference room opened, and a man in a suit stepped in. It was one of Victor's men. "I think you should know, Tobi," the man said, his voice calm but filled with menace. "This meeting is over." Tobi's eyes narrowed. "What are you talking about?" Victor stood up, his smirk growing. "You thought you could outsmart me, Tobi? You thought I didn't have eyes on everything? It's over. Your empire is crumbling and you're the one who's going down with it." Tobi's face darkened, but he didn't flinch. "You're too late, Victor." The man who had entered the room stepped forward, revealing a folder filled with documents. "You've been set up, Tobi. The financial records we've uncovered, the deals you've made, this is all the evidence we need to destroy you." Tobi's heart raced, but he didn't let it show. "You think I'm scared of your threats?" he said, his voice cold. "I've played your game long enough. And I'm done. You'll never win. The final stand." Amara's gaze shifted from Tobi to Victor, then to the man with the folder. The situation was spiraling out of control. But Amara wasn't going to let this be the end. She wasn't going to let Tobi lose everything because of Victor's greed. Without thinking, she stood up, her heart pounding in her chest. "Tobi is not going to fall today, Victor. Neither of you will win. It's over." Victor laughed, the sound harsh and mocking. "You think you can stop this? You're just a pawn in all of this. There's nothing you can do to save him now." But Amara didn't flinch. She stepped closer to Tobi, her hand reaching for his. "We're in this together. And together we'll end this once and for all." Tobi looked at her, a mixture of admiration and awe in his eyes. She was strong. stronger than he had ever given her credit for. With Amara by his side, Tobi finally made the move that would change everything. He turned the tables, using the evidence they had gathered to expose Victor's corruption and deceit. The battle wasn't just about survival, it was about taking control and fighting back. And this time Tobi wasn't going to lose. The resolution. The dust finally settled after the storm, and Amara and Tobi stood side by side, victorious. Victor Calderon had been exposed, his empire crumbling under the weight of his own greed. The final pieces had fallen into place, and for the first time, Amara felt the weight lift off her shoulders. "We did it," she whispered, looking up at Tobi. Tobi smiled, his heart swelling with pride and love. "We did it, Amara. Together." Amara looked out over the city, the future suddenly filled with endless possibilities. It hadn't been easy and there would be more challenges ahead, but she knew one thing for sure: she had found something worth fighting for. Something worth loving. And as Tobi wrapped his arms around her, Amara knew that no matter what came next, they would face it together. The end.